that answer your question, Jacqueline?
It does. I wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
the
thank
motion
you.
wasn't divestment from private prisons as a
Thank-
sort of general.
Yeah, thank you for that important distinction and clarification. Joy?
Thank you, and I know that Dana has moved to closed debate, so I will be short. I think, you know, several people have made comments that I think reflect what I've been thinking. You know, like I think everyone here and everybody in the room, this is an issue that's really emotional and meaningful to me, but in my capacity as a board member, I personally think it's really important to think about the policies that our board uses to make decisions, whether this one or other decisions that we make. And I do have some concerns about whether, in this case, you know, sort of the thresholds that we need to meet in order to support divestment are met. And I just felt it was important to go on record stating that.
Sharon? And then
I'll take a.
Okay, sure.
We can vote. I just wanted to, I mean, I think it's clear that we're agonizing over this decision. And I respect my fellow board members and the things that you've shared. And I mean, I work at a community college in LA where, you know, half our population are DACA students, or, so it's a very, something I experience a lot when I'm in Los Angeles. So it's not lost on me. And I think what I've been wrestling with in reading the report and wrestling with the conversation we've had over multiple years now around engagement and divestment is how to be as impartial as possible and focused on our policies that we've put time and effort into. And if we don't like the way our policies are right now, I think we should change them. I think what I'm struggling with is I respect very much hearing from my own members from CFT and other organizations. I think I'm struggling with, I think some of Dana's comments earlier about our voice and our influence, and some of these policies are just coming from the administration on a national level, and how much us pulling out of these two companies actually makes any meaningful change. And so I think for me, I feel like even though I care about this issue, it's an issue that I certainly, I feel like as a board member, our policy for me has not given me enough to be able to support a motion to divest at this point. So those are my feelings, just focused on the policy and making sure that we're sort of consistent with what we've said. We have a lot of these conversations, and clearly every time we have them, they are really challenging conversations to have. But those are just my thoughts, and I guess I would move to close debate and have us vote at this point.
Okay, so it's been a motion to close debate. Is there a second to close debate?
Second.
Okay, take a roll call vote. Can you read back the motion?
So I have it. The motion is to divest from the two private prison companies identified. You vote on closing the debate.
Close, yeah, the motion to close debate. All those in favor of closing debate, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, debate is closed. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, no, thank you.
Sorry, you're down on that one.
So the motion, as I have it, is simply to divest from the two companies identified in the item 13, CoreCivic and Geo Group. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Treasurer Chung? Aye. For the State Controller, Ms. Peglin? No. Mr. Rosensteel? No. Ms. Higa? Ms. Yamamoto? Aye. Ms. Dillon?
Aye.
Ms. Hendricks?
No.
Ms. Vargas?
Aye.
Ms. Sumant?
Aye.
And Ms. Wong Hernandez for the Director of Finance? No. Do you choose to vote?
I do.
And Mr. Keeley?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll take a, we have a, we're going to take a break. And then, Joy, if we could chat just for a second, I appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you. And then we'll come back in about 5 minutes or so.
Asset size, which they always want to know. October was tough, so the asset size is $220 billion, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
So, in consultation with the Vice Chair of the committee, given the reception that we're having later in the day and the panel that we're having, we've made a decision to move items 15, 16, and 17 off of today's agenda and will be placed on a future agenda. And Mr. Elman was involved with that consultation as well with Joy and myself. And that is to accommodate the schedule that has been carved out and the number of guests that we have here for our panel. So we are going right to item 20, which are statements from members of the public. 15, 16, and 17 are pulled. Thank you. Item 20, opportunities for statements for the public. You have 3 minutes each. We have William Rodriguez. William, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm William Rodriguez. I've been a server at the Pullman Hotel in Redwood City for 16 years. You have heard from me several times before. Today, I need you to hear from the people standing next to me. And these are the workers from the Irvine Marriott in Orange County, the other hotel owned by CBRE Fund 7. CBRE bought the Irvine Marriott in 2015, the same year as the Pullman. Both hotels are now up for sale. In both hotels, we have suffered as a result of CBRE's short-term scheme to cut costs, renovate, and then flip the properties. Let me remind you what has happened at my hotel. Over the last 3 years, CBRE has allowed their operator to cut costs wherever possible. To start with, 29 employees lost their jobs and many of their positions were not replaced. Then the hotel jacked up our health insurance, which means that we often cannot go to the doctor even if we want to. Then they replaced direct hires with a bottom-of-the-barrel temp agency. Almost a third of housekeeping staff currently works for a temp agency. Now they are selling the hotel out from under us with no resolution of the labor dispute. CBRE let all of this happen on their watch. In fact, it seems like it's their business model. And there's nothing special about the Pullman. After talking with the Irvine Marriott workers, it's clear that CBRE used the same playbook at their hotel. I hope that the Irvine workers don't have to go through what I have been through for almost 2 years since we started organizing. But if they do, we are now twice as strong, and we are going to fight side by side until we all win a voice at work. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I'm William. I'm done.
Vicky Juarez. Vicky.
Good afternoon. My name is Vicky Juarez. I am an immigrant from El Salvador. I work for Irvine Marriott. I have been working there for 16 years as a banquet server and a wife and a mother of 2 children. At 10 and 6 years, I worked really hard for them so they can have a better future. In 2010, one of my coworkers, I would call him Fran, started to harass me. He started calling me all the time. He would ask me whether I was, what I'm doing, what didn't answer his calls. That was a red flag for me. I declined his advancement, and he started to act aggressive. He followed me to home. My husband told me that Fran was also following him. I reported him to HR and to my banquet manager, but they believed him instead of me. Meanwhile, Frank continued to harass me. My manager accused me that it made me feel that I was my fault. I started to question myself. I actually started to believe that maybe it was my fault. I decided to keep quiet about it. Around 2011, I got really bad. I was pregnant with my second child. The urban police called me at home late night. They said that they had learned of a death threat against me and my husband from a coworker. They say Frank was under arrest. I was terrified, but the police got temporary arrestation order against him. I thought I could return to work safely, but for one reason, management let him return to work at the same hotel like normal. I saw him at work and was terrified again. I got restriction order made permanent. Again, I thought I could return to work safely, but the next day I reported to work. Security didn't let me in. My manager told me that I had to go home. It was out of work for days. I thought it was getting fired. I thought I was going to lose my health insurance, which I really needed because I was pregnant. So I got nervous, anxious, and depressed. I couldn't sleep, starting having contractions. I was afraid I might lose my baby. I even started having social thought. Several days later, the assistant GM called me to tell me that I could come back to work, and that was like nothing happened. After that, manager never asked me about the harassment. They never talked to me or took report. They never showed me any interest after that. They didn't even pay for the days that I was suspended. They finally fired Frank. I feel that Urban Marriott's management did not take my complaints about the sexual harassment seriously. My managers made me feel that I was to blame for the harassment. My manager failed me to protect me until I got the restriction order and for beginning treatment and harassment. They punished me on 3 days suspension without pay. I didn't talk about this experience for years. Then recently I started organizing union with my coworkers. I learned that I'm not alone. Some of my coworkers shared with me the experience with harassment at the urban area. They told me when they reported the harassment from the guests or the coworkers.
I have to stop you there. I have to be fair to the process. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Okay.
And Samir, if you could help with that, we would appreciate that, so we can honor the process. Thank you. Leticia Vallejo? Samir, can you make sure that the speakers understand why? Thank you, sir. Leticia?
Just for the record, that was Vicky.
Oh, okay.
And this is Liliana.
Liliana, okay. That was Vicky, okay.
Soy Liliana Rodríguez y trabajo para el Hotel Urban Marriott como housekeeper. Tengo 17 años trabajando para Marriott. Mis compañeras y yo hemos sufrido bastantes injusticias y abusos por parte de la gerencia.
Hi, my name is Liliana Rodriguez, and I work for the Urban Marriott Hotel as a housekeeper, and I have 17 years working in the Marriott. My coworkers and I suffer a lot of injustice and abuse for part of this hotel.
Yo tengo 22 años viviendo con diabetes tipo 2. Mi trabajo consiste en limpiar cuartos con mucha presión porque nos dan un límite de tiempo para limpiar 15 cuartos diarios y casi siempre nos obligan a hacer 1 o 2 extras.
I have 22 years living with diabetes type 2. My work is clean rooms with a lot of pressure. They gave us a time limit to do the 15 rooms every day, and almost every day they always put a 1 or 2 extra room.
A finales de julio tuve un accidente donde me dio un ataque de diabetes. Estaba limpiando el cuarto 906. Comencé a sentir que no podía respirar con un dolor intenso de cabeza y me sentía bien mareada.
At the end of July, I had an incident where I had a diabetic attack. I was cleaning the room night of sick, and I'm start feeling that I can breathe. I was feeling really hard pain on my head, and I was feeling really dizzy.
Llamé a la supervisora Claudia para que me ayudara y ella solo me dijo que tomara agua y que siguiera haciendo mi trabajo.
I called my supervisor, Claudia, and I told her that I was feeling bad. She told me, just drink water and please keep doing the rooms.
Yo quería gritar, me sentía desesperada e impotente. Bajé a la oficina para hablar con la manager y ella me ignoró.
I was feeling really bad. I want to scream. I was feeling desperate, and I went down to the office to talk to the manager, and she just ignored me.
Solamente tomé un poco de agua y esperé en la ponchadora a una compañera que me pudiera llevar a mi casa. Una compañera tuvo la bondad de llevarme a mi casa para que yo pudiera tomar mi medicamento.
The only thing that I did was drink water, and I was waiting on the punching machine for my coworker because she told me that she can give me a ride to my house so I can take my medicine.
Uno de los incidentes más graves que he pasado allí fue cuando sufrí acoso de un huésped y la gerencia me ignoró.
One of the incidents more bad that happened to me was when one of the guests made sexual harassment to me and the company just ignored me.
Hace 7 u 8 años yo estaba limpiando un baño. Llegó un guest desnudo a mi cuarto y se paró en la puerta del baño. Yo estaba detrás de la puerta del baño, me vio y comenzó a insultarme en inglés.
Like 7 or 8 years ago, I was cleaning the bathroom in one of the rooms, and a guest get to the room and he was naked. He was standing in the door of the bathroom. I was behind the door of the bathroom, and he started telling me bad word in English.
Me dijo cosas feas, bien feas que ni puedo repetir. Una de las palabras que recuerdo que me dijo fue fuck you. Yo estaba asustada y en estado de shock.
He told me a lot of things, like really bad things that I don't want to repeat right now. But one of the words that I remember was fuck you. I was really scared and I was in shock.
Él quiso abusar de mí porque vi que estaba y venía sobre mí con sus manos. Cerré la puerta del baño y le puse llave.
He was trying to abuse me because I saw how he was getting into me with his hand. I just closed the door of the bathroom and I put a lock.
Yo temblaba del miedo, casi desmayándome, me senté en el toilet y me puse a llorar con pánico. El guest golpeaba la puerta bien fuerte y pensé que me iba a tumbar la puerta y me iba a hacer daño.
I was shaking. I was really scared. I would just sit in the toilet and I'm start crying because I was in panic. The guest was knocking the door really hard. I was thinking he was going to break the door and he was going to do me something bad.
Cuando sentí que se había ido, abrí la puerta con mucho miedo y corrí a las gradas de emergencia y fui donde otra compañera y allí me desmayé.
When I feel that he left the room, I opened the door. I was really scared and I was running, going down to the stairs, and I went to look for one of my coworkers, and I was feeling really bad when I get with her.
La gerencia no me mandó a mi casa aún con mi estado de pánico.
The manager saw me that I was really bad, but they didn't tell me to go home, so I keep working.
Me faltaban 2 cuartos y la gerencia me mandó a terminar mi trabajo.
I still missing 2 rooms, and my manager told me, just go back and do the 2 rooms that you're still missing.
Yo tenía tanto miedo que limpié los cuartos con las puertas cerradas.
I was so scared that I had to clean the rooms with the door closed.
Más tarde, cuando iba a mi casa, ese mismo guest que había querido abusar de mí quiso de otras 2 recamareras en la tarde.
The same day, later, when I was ready to go home, the same guest was trying to abuse other two co-workers.
Mis compañeras me dijeron que el guest les abrió la puerta y estaba desnudo.
My coworker said we went to the room and we opened the door and the guest was naked.
El guest les insistió que entraran al cuarto, pero ellas no entraron.
Thank you. And for those who wondering what the accommodation for translation for the additional time. Leticia.
Hola, me llamo Leticia Vallejo. Soy lobby attendant at the Irvine Marriott Hotel. Tengo 19 años trabajando at the Irvine Marriott. Quiero que sepan ustedes el abuso y la discriminación y la humillación que recibí por parte de los manejadores del hotel durante mis años trabajando allí.
My name is Leticia Vallejo. I'm a housekeeper at the Irvine Marriott Hotel. I've been working there for 19 years. I want you to know about the abuse, the discrimination, the humiliation that I've received from management during my years there.
En el 2012 fui diagnosticada con breast cancer. Me fui por 8 meses a recibir mi tratamiento. Cuando regresé al trabajo, agosto de 2013, mis manejadores empezaron a tratarme muy diferente. Fue como un infierno para mí.
In 2012, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. For 8 months, I was out receiving treatment. When I returned to work in August of 2013, my managers began to treat me very differently. It was like hell.
Perdí mi pelo durante el tratamiento. Mi manejador le dijo a los supervisores que me mandaran to the back of the house, para la parte de atrás. Él me dijo, ya no la quiero enfrente, porque no me gusta cómo se mira. Mi manejador se burlaba de la manera como yo caminaba y me decía varias veces, ¿quieres que tome un video para que mires cómo caminas?
I lost my hair during my treatment. My manager told the supervisor to send me to the back. He said, I don't want you in front because I don't like how you look. My manager made fun of how I walked. He told me several times, would you like me to take a video of you so you can see how you walk?
Mi manager me puchaba para que yo renunciara. Me ponía a limpiar los pisos de la cocina arrodillada. Me gritaba que yo tenía la culpa de todo lo malo que pasaba allí. El manager general venía a lonchar y él me hacía servirlo, mientras que él y mi supervisora me observaban. Él me dio hasta el punto de un miedo, hasta el punto del pánico. Después del manager general me dio un mal reporte y ellos me disciplinaban. Esto pasó por 3 veces por semana, por 3 meses. Y yo rechacé a renunciar.
My manager pushed me to quit. He would put me to clean the floors in the kitchen, in back. He would yell at me that everything bad happened was my fault. The manager, general manager, would come to lunch. My manager would have me serve him while he and my supervisor watched. This was scary for me to the point of panic. Afterwards, the general manager would give me a bad report and discipline me. This happened about 3 times a week for 3 months. I refused to quit.
3 meses después que yo regresé de mi tratamiento de cáncer, nos dijeron a los compañeros de mi trabajo y a mí que ellos querían cambiar el concepto del restaurante.
3 months after I came back from my treatment, they told me and my coworkers that they were changing the concept of the restaurant.
Mi manager me dijo que Marriott quería una imagen más joven en el concepto nuevo. Él nos dijo que el manager nos quería reemplazar a nosotros por gente nueva y joven. Mi manager dijo enfrente de mí que el general manager quería gente güeros y bonitos. Nos dijo que teníamos que tomar un examen para poder conservar nuestros puestos. Nunca nos enseñaron los resultados de ese examen, pero nos dijeron que no habíamos pasado y empezaron a bajarnos de puesto. Un bartender con 30 años de servicio le bajaron a barback y era un excelente cantinero. Otro mesero lo bajaron a un food runner cuando era un excelente mesero. Y él hizo un comentario de que su apariencia era de un indio, negro y chaparro. Bajaron a otro compañero de mesero de runner y él también era un excelente mesero. Un tercer mesero lo bajaron a room service. Todos nosotros perdimos mucho dinero cuando nos bajaron de posición. En este tiempo tenía yo mucho miedo que me corrieran. Yo fui a mi manager llorando.
Okay. 3 months after I returned from
Thank you.
cancer treatment, they told
Michelle?
us that they wanted to change the concept of the restaurant. They said that they wanted a younger concept, a new concept. My manager said that he wanted to replace us with young, newer employees. My manager said in front of me that they wanted people who were white and beautiful. They said that we would have to take a test to keep our positions. They never showed us the results of the test, but they said we'd failed. They started to demote us. A bartender with 30 years of service was demoted to barback. He was an excellent bartender. The manager said that he looked Indian, black, and short. They lowered
Okay,
another.
thank you. I have to go to the next speaker. Thank you so much. You can submit that into the record if you'd like.
So we have 3 statements that we've not been permitted to finish. We want to submit them all into the public record.
Yeah,
Is that a problem?
not at all, sir. We welcome them. Thank you. Michelle Dumont? I think Diane Stanton is in the back. You be sure you get all those written statements, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Dumont. I'm a longtime resident of Orange County, and I've had a variety of leadership roles with a variety of committees and boards. A couple of them was I am the past president of the Orange County Latina Business Women's Association. I'm also active in the Orange County Women's Empowerment Organization, and I worked in education for many years, specifically in special education. I'm also currently involved in higher academia, in fundraising and development with a variety of universities and community colleges. I also have a deep passion for women issues, and I'm very involved in a lot of activity in the community. So I'm here today to stand with the women of this hotel. They're loyal, dedicated, and responsible, and they make CBRE very successful. Yet CBRE treats them like they are disposable and that their contribution is not valued. Why? Because they are women? Perhaps because they are women of color? Listen to the women. Why don't you listen to the women? They work diligently and with dignity, and their level of competence and skills enriches CBRE. And Marriott with profits. And enhances the brand worldwide. These women are particularly vulnerable to these repulsive, abusive practices because they have bills to pay and families to feed, just like me, and I'm sure all of you. Marriott has demonstrated a complete lack of moral leadership, corporate values, and professional ethics in our community. And it's outrageous. Everybody here should be outraged. Marriott does not belong in my community of Irvine if it's not going to respect the members of my community and of the honorable workers. We demand that CBRE and Marriott management stop the practice of abuse, harassment, and discrimination against these workers. We also ask that you agree to labor peace. Peace. And a democratic path for workers to unionize. We also demand that there be no retaliation for sharing their testimony and asking for support from us or from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Samir? Was it, okay. Sarah from the Clergy and Lady United for Economic Justice, CLUE.
Yes, thank you. My name is Reverend Dr. Sarah Halverson Cano. I'm a pastor in Orange County and also a member of the Board of Directors of Clergy and Lady United for Economic Justice. We work with workers and with clergy and laity throughout Southern California. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of my community. We are deeply disturbed and grieved by these testimonies. I assume that you are too. I do hope you read them in their entirety because these women have been through extreme situations, and it is our call to stand up with them. I want you to know that as a pastor in this community, I'm joined with many other clergy, with congregations who are also deeply disturbed by these words. And so we're calling on you today to act on their behalf. I want to speak to all of the women who are sitting on the dais today because, sisters, this is our responsibility to do the right thing, to stand up for our sisters. Men, this is your chance. This is your chance to say no to the women who have been to the movement that has hurt women for decades upon decades, to stand and say, we stand with the women, we believe the women, this Me Too movement is gonna stop with me, I'm gonna make the difference. Today is your day. We demand that CBRE and the hotel management stop the abuses immediately, that they don't retaliate against the workers should they decide to organize for a union, that they do indeed practice that openness, that the workers may organize without retaliation. We're here and we're watching. You have an opportunity today to be a moral voice, to stand up and stand with these workers today and the workers' stories that you have not heard. And I assure you, I have sat at table after table and heard many, many heartbreaking stories. These are among the worst, but they are not the least. And so I ask you today to use your power, to tap into that moral compass that you have inside of you, not to simply let it pass on to somebody else's buck, but you take that responsibility today to stand up, to stand out, to be proud, to work with women, to listen and hear stories, and make a change for the better today.
Thank you, Reverend. Samir Santi.
Samir Santi, Unite Here Local 11. I want to start by, again, as always, thanking the board and staff for all your work over the past year. We brought this to you many times. But unfortunately, as you've just heard, the situation has not improved. The Irvine Marriott Hotel, where these three very courageous women work, is owned by CBRE through Strategic Partners Fund 7. This is, to be clear, the same fund that owns the Pullman Hotel, about which you are well aware. Together, these two hotels account for more than 20% of the value, or about 20% of the value of Fund 7. Both of the hotels are currently being marketed for sale. This is the first time these very brave women have shared their stories in public, the first time. But it will not be the last. As soon as they get home, they and their coworkers will be speaking more and more about the injustices at their workplace and deciding together what steps to take next, just like the Pullman workers have been doing for the past year. We want to make very clear that we will not tolerate any retaliation against them, and we expect CBRE and all of its investors to hold Marriott accountable if the hotel retaliates against these workers. As you all know, none of this is happening in a vacuum. The Irvine workers are, of course, joining their brothers and sisters at the Pullman, who've been fighting for a labor peace agreement from CBRE's operator, HEI, for more than a year. And separately, thousands and thousands of Marriott workers are on strike across the country as we speak. We believe the common denominator at the Pullman, San Francisco Bay, and the Irvine Marriott is CBRE's unwillingness to hold their operators to the standard that CalSTRS expects. Indeed, CBRE seems like an obstacle to CalSTRS' efforts to operationalize its framework for mitigating ESG risk factors. There is really only one way to overcome this problem: calling on CBRE to sign a labor peace agreement that applies to those investments to which CalSTRS is exposed. And again, to reiterate, both the Irvine Marriott and the Pullman are being marketed for sale as we speak. As we highlighted in a labor peace report that I've given to you, and I'm happy to give you more copies, we believe it's not in the interest of limited partners to sell the Pullman when conditions like you've heard prevail. We believe the same calculation should apply to the Irvine Marriott. So to conclude, I'd like to note that in addition to being a limited partner in Strategic Partners Funds 6, 7, and 8, CalSTRS maintains a very large separate account with CBRE. We believe it may well be time for CalSTRS to consider whether the system's broader relationship with CBRE serves the interests of the funds, participants, and beneficiaries. Thanks again.
Thank you. Susie Chow, UTLA beneficiary. Hi, Susie. Oh, yeah. That's why.
Serving for Loretta.
United Teachers Los Angeles retired, and also work actively and speaking on behalf of United Teachers Los Angeles. We want to thank CalSTRS for listening to the concerns over these past years and having some engagement with the Pullman Group. And as you have heard, we stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are suffering under these kind of conditions. So what we really would like to have is not a divestment, okay, because we've just went through that, but to urge CalSTRS to call on CBRE to halt the sale of Pullman and Irvine Marriott hotels until the labor disputes have been resolved. Because in your own history, you guys did not do this and missed an opportunity with PCCP, back then when you guys sold at the Phoenix Hyatt, and you guys lost $40 million, okay? And as Sharon said, your job, and I appreciate it because I'm a pension that gets the money every month or whatever we get it, Karen, is that you're here to make money for us, and you're here to make money, and you're also here to do the right thing. And so I told Chris that I'm going to keep it short. There's a lot more things I could say, but we want you to resolve the disputes, then sell, then make more money, and also because it's the right thing for CalSTRS to do on behalf of our students, our parents, our workers, and our future of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Okay. We had one public speaker who put in a chit after the items were item 11 and 12, and then it said also item 12. It's a familiar face. Reverend Spalding, no, you're fine? I'm fine. We owe you one. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of public comments and takes us to item, what is it, 9? No, not 21. We have information requests. Do we have any information requests? Steve, did you capture any? Okay, thank you. Chris, you want to walk us through the agenda for our next meeting?
Yes.
Thanks.
Excuse the
Chris.
consultants because we need the chairs. I want to bring up the panel and I want to welcome the numerous money managers we have in the back of the room. And for the board that doesn't know, the overflow room is absolutely at capacity with emerging managers. This is the third time that we have hosted a reception
Chris,
for.
We're going to do item for the agenda for the next meeting. Before.
Sorry.
That's okay. Then you could do the introductions.
So we got to continue those two?
We did information requests. We just want to walk through the agenda item for
January 30th.
January.
January 30th.
Apologize.
That's okay.
It's been a day.
Obviously, we need to add the, now I suddenly can't find it. You guys got me nervous. That's my staff. They're awesome.
Yep. Anything you want to highlight there for us, Chris?
Well, number one, we don't know the level of board turnover. For those people who have been on the board a while, I'm going to go back and do the big branch overview, big picture. We used to do that in 2011 and 12, as well as a history of the investment branch, which Dana has asked to have updated. The most important thing is we begin asset allocation step 1. So we will be kicking it off. Typically, when we have a lot of board turnover, the best way to think about it is we kind of approach it like a meal. We start with kind of light appetizers in February, then we get into more of the salad course at the next meeting in March, and then we get into more of the heavy protein and tough stuff later in June. We might have to speed things up, and Karen can help those board members assimilate from, as she discussed. Karen said a statement to me the other day that was identical to what Carolyn Widener, who's one of the people that's up on that wall for longevity, said to me. It took a year to figure out what they needed to know and what they didn't need to know, and to understand what's important. So we understand it's complex, but we have to help these new trustees get up to speed. So apologize for many people that will feel like we're being too basic or repeating ourselves, but you can recognize the other trustees will need that as well. We're going to be continuing the investment cost report, the private equity collaborative model, and the inflation-sensitive collaborative model. So what was going to be a concise meeting, I will now tell Jack is going to be a much longer meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Item 21, is Aisha here? Aisha, why don't you bring our panelists up?
Now I can start my speech.
Chris? Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about the purpose of this item, and then we'll turn it over to Aisha to introduce our guests. And we're going to go until no later than 5:30, and then we'll have our reception.
So I want to welcome all the money managers in the back of the room, as well as I mentioned, the overflow room is absolutely full as well. I am thrilled to say it's our third year. The staff does an awesome job of putting this together. There are over 150 money managers here to meet with us and our staff. We have a post for each asset class, and each director and their PMs comes and sits and spends time with all these managers. It'll be a 2-hour reception. We encourage the board members to please come over and just meet yourself and introduce. We invited over the Black Caucus, the Latino Caucus, the Asian Caucus. I'm not sure if we're going to get any of them attending, but we really tried to reach out and to every affinity group, to NASP, to NAA, to AAAIM, and to NAIC to invite all their members here. So a huge shout out to Aisha, who will put this panel together, and also Carissa Rapolo, who put the evening together. The bottom line I want you to understand is we've been at diversity for over 20 years at CalSTRS. We have had a dedicated program since 2003. We started, I think, behind our peers. We got and zoomed ahead in 08, 09. We were receiving awards. Many people feel that we've fallen behind our peers. And I said to you before, our biggest challenge is we need to define what diversity means, because the definition has changed from what it was in 2003. In 2003, it was gender and ethnicity, but now it is much larger than that because it includes sexual orientation, military, disability, and we've got to figure that out. That's not the panel already asked that they don't be asked to define it, but I'm still going to grill them with that, because we need to figure out what does that mean at Goldman Sachs versus what does that mean at a small money manager. Right now, we define diversity as small. So that's a misnomer. Emerging for us means diversity, but obviously a small firm does not mean it's diverse. And that's been part of our panel. So I hope you can hear from them, their firsthand experience, their advice. We're going to have several shots at this to try and figure out how we at CalSTRS define diversity. And as I said earlier during comp, what gets measured gets managed. So we will define it, we will measure it, and we will manage it. With that, Aisha, I turn to you.
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. I want to actually thank the stakeholder engagement team, which is Geraldine Jimenez, Sarah Maley, and Gabe DeMesa, because they really were the ones that helped me put together this panel. So I want to shout out to them. I'm going to go ask each one of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. I know you all have their bios in your board materials, but I think it's important that you get some context about, they're focused around diversity and inclusion, and then also their relationship with CalSTRS, because I think that's really important. So I'm going to start here first. Edward, you get the honors of going first.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Edward Powers. I'm a managing director at HarborVest. I've been investing in small, diverse, and emerging managers for about 20 years, all in private equity. We've managed programs for you that do that. A long history of investing in diverse managers. I'm the son of public employees and teachers too, so it's obviously a sort of a sacred duty of ours.
And next. Oh, good. Next.
Green, okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Ivy Sanford. Thank you for having me. I'm a managing director at Goldman Sachs, and I am our West Coast senior leader for business development. Been at the firm for 22 years, and our relationship with CalSTRS is we've historically managed money. We don't at the present time, but we have been a thought partner on some of the really important diversity initiatives like Beyond Talk and others, and continue to want to partner in that regard.
Good afternoon. My name is Thurman White. I'm CEO and chairman of Progress Investment Management Company based in San Francisco. We're a small employee-owned firm with about $7 billion in assets under management and entering our 28th year of business. We work with a global equity team at CalSTRS. We manage a global equity portfolio as a manager of managers, so we serve as an extension of the staff to oversee a portfolio of smaller sub-managers. Like Ed, I happen to be the son of an educator, and my maternal grandparents were educators. And I have three adult sons, two of which are in the Bay Area, and both of them are members of CalSTRS. And so I work for them. And they are very excited to tell me that all the time and ask me how we're doing on behalf of you guys. So I believe in public education. I'm a product of the Oklahoma City Public Schools. And my wife and I have a philanthropic project right now in Oklahoma City Public Schools, pre-K through second grade, and 6 elementary schools. So I believe in public education, and thank you for what you do.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Harmon. Thank you very much for having me. I am co-founder and CEO of Artemis Real Estate Partners, which was started in late 2009. We were among the first, if not the first, majority woman-owned U.S. real estate investment management firm. And today, we're actually the largest, with approximately $4 billion of equity capital under management. We invest with best-in-class local operating partners, both emerging and established, across product type and geography in the U.S. We have acquired approximately $5 billion of assets since June of 2011, and 170 investments across 8 vehicles. We have a national footprint with offices in LA and DC and New York and Atlanta. We have 50 employees, approximately 55% of them are minority or women. We have 2 primary business lines, $3 billion, a series of discretionary value add and core plus funds, and then $1.3 billion of core and core plus separate accounts dedicated to emerging managers. Our relationship with CalSTRS began in July of 2017 when you invested $100 million in our $475 million Artemis Healthcare Fund, which we are very much appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So I'm going to start with a few questions for the panel, and I have some that I'm going to throw out to the entire panel. Feel free to chime in. I have some others that are specifically geared towards 1 or 2 of you. And then I definitely want to leave a few minutes at the end for questions from the board. And I know we're sort of running short on time, but I think we can do it.
We're okay with
Okay.
We made sure we want to have
Okay,
we're
great.
fine with time, Aisha.
Great.
Thank you.
So this one really goes out to the entire panel. And from your perspective, can you tell us how diverse do you think the investment industry is today? And then Stephanie, specifically to you, do you think there's a difference between large firms and then Thurman to you, small firms? You know, how does that measure of diversity compare?
Okay.
I know, start with the easy questions, right?
Well, if you think about, again, our work in the public markets, so unlike Ed, for example, in private equity, we're in the public markets. And so roughly there's about $70 trillion of assets that are managed by firms in this country. And minority and women-owned firms manage less than 1%. So that gives you some sense of scale in terms of diversity. And when I say less than 1%, it's probably 1/2 of 1%. So that's probably in the few $100 billion range in an aggregate. So think about our portfolio for CalSTRS. We manage about $600 million in a developed non-U.S. equity strategy. We have 7 managers in that portfolio, 5 of which are minority and women-owned firms. As Chris was alluding to earlier, 2 others are what we call, quote, emerging firms, if you will. Their size ranges from anywhere from a little bit less than $200 million in firm assets under management to over about $4.6 billion in assets under management. So the industry is diverse. We've had a relationship with CalSTRS for 10 years. During that period of time, we've probably hired upwards of 30 managers on our platform. We started with the U.S. equity strategy about 2 years ago. That transitioned to a developed markets non-U.S. equity strategy. So CalSTRS, CalPERS, there are some leaders in this space around diversity and investment management. So that's the good news. The bad news or the opportunity, if you will, is what I said earlier. $70 trillion, less than 1% managed by minority and women. So there's a lot of room for improvement, a lot of opportunity to grow.
I think Thurman did a great job of laying out the landscape of assets. And I would say, you know, we all would recognize in this room we have a long way to go. I think where we've seen a lot of improvement is at the junior levels of organizations. We're starting to see some improvement at the board level. We're actually starting to see some decreases in the C-suite or lack of representation in certain sectors. So they're kind of interesting trends happening in that regard, especially in the public market space. And so we have a program on our alternative investment manager selection platform where we have about 300 managers and about 20 of them, this is in public equity and long only space, 20 of them are diverse. And so I'd say we would all agree in the room that a lot of work needs to be done. And where we're seeing a real shift is how people are starting to track and look at the momentum. And how do you measure diversity? You guys have certain issues in terms of questions you are and are not allowed to ask. But there are things beyond pure numbers that we think that you can start to do and assess in a due diligence process, for example, that can try to get your arms around it. I think large firms have the benefit of resources, being able to have a chief diversity officer. And one of the things we talked about in our panel is, does that really mean anything? And can you look at things at the leadership level and the accountability, the compensation structures, like what are the real, those are questions I believe you can ask that are not metric focused, but help you understand the firm culture. And so I think large firms have an advantage, and there's a bias to perceiving larger firms as being more diverse in some cases, but that's not necessarily truly representative. And so we think it's much more of a metrics game. And when we look at managers, we try not to have a large firm bias because of that, because people could be very diverse in their policies and procedures in a way that is not evident when you just look at numbers that have to be publicly reported, for example.
I will add to Stephanie, and the question was about respective advantages. Small firms are small, they're nimble, and I listened quite intently to the discussion earlier about fiduciary responsibility. And I think it's part of that fiduciary responsibility to have the broadest net in terms of looking at the widest range of investment options. So we're a specialist in working with small, new, diverse firms. And so what we do and what we help the CalSTRS to do is cast the broadest net to look at all the potential investment options. And so in that sense, it's part of the fiduciary responsibility. And in fact, you probably are not living out your fiduciary responsibility if you aren't looking broadly. So small firms are hungry, they want to prove things, and I want to be clear that if you look at the 60 firms that are on our platform, the median experience level is 20 plus years. And so these are experienced investment professionals who have the entrepreneurial desire to go out and start new firms. And so it's the new firms that have the barrier to entry, but these are experienced investment professionals.
You know, we touched on the public equity side. I'd like to move to the private side of things and talk to Debbie and Ed about, you know, back to Chris's question about how do you measure and how do you define diversity at firms? And sometimes I think it's sometimes easier on the private side. So I don't know if either one of you
Sure,
can
I'll
speak
start.
to that.
I mean, I think it's interesting to listen to your statistics because real estate is sadly worse, but along the same vein. So in May of 2017, 889 real estate private equity funds, and 0.7% were women-owned, and 2% were minority-owned. But when you look at control of assets under management in the industry, which is what Thurman was talking about, 0.3% women-owned and 5 times that, or 1.5%, were minority-owned. And I honestly don't think it matters whether you're a small firm or a big firm. The commitment to diversity starts at the top. It's either a cultural value and you care about it, or you don't. And we believe it's the definition, which we talked about on our call, it starts with ownership, leadership, your employee base, policies, and partners. So we too have an emerging manager program where we have 29 emerging managers. Sounds very similar to Thurman's, just focused on real estate. We define what the definition of diverse firms for us is a minimum of 25% ownership of the business. And we have found that this usually leads the firm to construct diverse teams. And it's not an accident that Artemis is 55% minority and women when you think about it being majority women-owned. But you have to take the challenge of attracting and recruiting talent up and down the ranks very, very seriously. So it's even beyond when you look at the firms talking about diversity or hiring a diverse team, but you have to have the policies to retain that diverse team, and we call that intentional inclusivity. And I think the last component is you can look at your investment managers and also see who they partner with. Do they partner with diverse firms? We had the option to invest in emerging firms in the broadest definition, and yet we deployed 85% of our capital with diverse firms. So they exist, but there are multiple dimensions to the definition of a diverse firm, and we believe it's not enough just to address one dimension.
Maybe I'll try to give a little context for private equity. So when we started doing this 20 years ago, there were not as many diverse firms in the private equity industry, and the ones that were diverse actually were majority diverse only. So there were very few of these firms, and they were majority diverse. Now there are many more of these firms. You can argue, are there enough? But the diversity has actually become more diffuse in the industry. So you'll find teams that are not majority diverse, but there are diverse professionals at these private equity funds. Again, I'm not sure there's enough of that, but that's one of the things we've seen change over the last 20 years. And the other thing that's happened is there's been phenomenal performance by some of the players. And so that has changed the industry because you could honestly argue that the top performing private equity fund in the last 10 years is run by a diverse professional. And that's had tremendous impact on the industry because when that happens, the capital providers, whatever their view is of diversity, we're all charged with. We have to do the best job we can for you and for teachers. And so when you see these events occur, you're going to invest with the best folks you find. And that's been really great in the industry. These firms often start out in small manager or emerging manager programs. So you'll see them be a small fund and then grow up. I think those sort of changes have been very positive. There's a larger question of, is that enough? That I think is part of what you have to wrestle with here. But we've seen a lot of positive change in there being more diverse professionals. And we see these firms growing up and becoming part of your core private equity program. I mean, that's a true success.
Just for process, for committee members that are putting in requests to speak or ask questions, I'm going to let Aisha finish her line of questions, and then we'll open up to the full committee.
Perfect.
Okay, Aisha?
Sure. So Stephanie, you kind of alluded to this at the beginning. We face some challenges here in California in gathering this information. So I think it would be helpful for the audience and for the board. Maybe Thurman, you could talk about how you gather this information from the managers you work with. And then Ed, I don't know if you want to chime in as well.
Sure.